Hey everyone, my name is McKenna, also known as Sylphic Studios, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today I am back with another custom doll, but this time it's a little bit different because it's not a full custom, it's just a restyle of another G3 character. And that G3 character is, drumroll please, CUPID Asteria. Now I absolutely love her base doll and her base design that they went with. I think that she's super cute, but there are definitely like some small things that I wanted to change with mine. One of those things being removing the red from her color palette. I definitely think that it could work with her color palette, but just with all the other colors, it's just way too bold in my opinion, so I wanted to take that out. I initially wanted to keep the blue in her palette as well, but I couldn't figure out how to keep it in her design without it like clashing with her too much, if that makes sense. Especially when it came to painting her face up, like I just couldn't figure out a way to incorporate it, so I just decided to take that out too. And same with the gold, I kind of just wanted to go for like a gothic kind of dark, more alternative style for her. I know you wouldn't consider this gothic at all, but just like a darker aesthetic, I guess you could say. So without further ado, let's get into the customizing, starting with prepping. So like I said, since I am just restyling her, I don't have to do all of my necessary steps that I usually do for my normal customs, like repainting the body and all of that stuff. But I still wanted to give her a reroot because her box hair is kind of atrocious in my opinion. It looks really cute in her stock photos, but like come on, the box hair, that's not acceptable. So first things first, to prep her for her reroot, it's time to chop all of her hair off. So I kept her hair in the ponytail just to make it easier, and then I'm just going at it with my tiny pair of scissors here. I always start cutting off the hair by the front, that's just my preference, you can start wherever you want. I just go around the hairline like this and then make my way in. Usually whenever I chop doll hair off, I like to keep it if it's like a nice saran, but since her hair is so like ratty, I decided to just throw it away, unfortunately. I have seen other doll artists restyle her box hair beautifully, like my friend Amber here. This hair that she did on her is so stunning, especially the part line in the back, like it looks so good. But for me, I decided to take probably the more difficult route and just reroot her entire head, so I decided to chop everything off. And this was actually my first time ever working with curly hair, you'll see that later, I kinda didn't know what I was doing. So this head of hair was definitely a learning curve for me. But hey, now I know how to work with curly hair, so that's awesome. So after I cut off all of her hair, I just dunked her in some boiling hot water, and I'm just removing her head here with a towel. So now we'll be putting her body to the side for a little bit and working on removing all of her previous hair. And as always, to do this, I'm just taking my super long nose needle nose pliers and just scraping the crap out of the inside of her head. And I always do this immediately after removing the head while it's still warm because it makes it way easier to remove all the plugs. Once I can see that there's no more plugs sticking out, I'm just taking my needle nose pliers and just removing everything from the inside. This part's always a little tedious, and Cupid had these big chunks of hair. I think it's because her hair was curly, but she had these huge chunks that kept getting stuck. So I just sat there and pried them out until her head was empty. And once all of that hair was removed, it's time to get into the very tedious part, which is the rerooting process. So for this head, I decided to use 5mm curls in the colors Cherry Blossom and Sweetheart. And I always use nylon hair from Shimmerlocks. Like 9 times out of 10, if I'm using hair, it's probably from Shimmerlocks. And like I said earlier, since this was my first curly reroot, I didn't really know what I was doing. So if you guys see anything that I'm doing and have any tips, please help a girl out, let me know. I was kind of just winging it, but I'll try to explain to the best of my ability what I was doing here. So essentially, I found the end of the big long strand because Shimmerlock's curly hair comes in one long strand, which I don't know if that's good or bad. I found it kind of inconvenient just because I felt it kept getting tangled, but anyway. I found the end of the strand, I measured it against the head just to see how the length would be. I cut it and then I just rerooted it like normal by putting it on my rerooting needle and then stabbing it in the head. And for the colors here, I was alternating between the light pink and the darker pink, so I went light pink, dark pink, literally all around the head, so that's what I did for the coloring. And since curly hair is super dense, you don't need to reroot the head fully whatsoever, especially since I decided to pull her hair up into 2 pigtails. So I literally only rooted her hairline and her middle part line, and that was it. So because of that, it definitely didn't take as long as a normal reroot, but because I didn't really know what I was doing, it still took me quite a long time, to be honest. Oh, and for her part line here, I did the same thing that I normally do for my reroots. I just did one plug on one side and then another plug on the other. I did reroot her bangs in the majority of the styling off camera because, like I said, I didn't know what I was doing. And I decided to style her hair before I glued it in there because I wanted to do the styling, then root the bangs, and then do the glue, but honestly I should have just glued it in there beforehand because I did lose a plug or two, so that's just a little note to self for next time. But now I'm just sealing in all of that hair with my Fabri-Tac glue as always. Once every single plug was covered with glue, I let that dry overnight, and now it's time to get into the face-up process. So to start off, I am just reattaching her head to her body, as one does. I put her hair up using some scrap fabric off camera, and now it's time to remove all of her factory paint with some acetone. I always love this step, like I always feel bad for like destroying the previous face-up, but it's always cool to see the sculpt come through, especially for a doll you've never pre-painted before. Which for Cupid, this was my first time ever repainting her, and she is gorgeous. This is probably one of my favorite sculpts now, to be honest. She has like the cutest little face. I love her. She is adorable. I loved repainting her for this face up. And I will definitely be stealing her heads in the future for some other customs because she is just the cutest little thing ever. For some reason though, I was having a lot of issues getting the paint off of the inside of her lips here, so I went at it with an X-Acto knife, and this kind of helped. I've never had this issue before where the paint just did not want to come off with acetone, but it's okay. The X-Acto knife came in to save the day. So once I got done fighting to take all of her previous face-up paint off, this is what she was looking like. And unfortunately, I'm really dumb and forgot to hit record whenever I was sketching out her face. Of course, I would do that. But anyway, this is what her face sketch was looking like for the first layer. I think she's looking adorable so far, so let's get into the second layer now. And for all of her eyeshadow and body blushing, I did use this eyeshadow palette that's kind of ancient that I've had for a long time. And I'm just using the super bright pink on my tiny brush here to pack in her eyeshadow color. And I'm making sure to be very precise here just to make sure that I'm getting it all blended out correctly the way I want it to. Because even though pastels and eyeshadows can be pretty forgiving if you mess up, you still want to make sure you're being as precise as you can possibly be, especially if you're going for a super blended look. And for her face up, like I said at the beginning of the video, I wanted to go for like more of a blue and pink color story for her at first, but I just couldn't figure out how to incorporate the light blue into her face up, especially because her eyes are already light blue, and I didn't want her eyes to get lost. So I just decided to go for like your standard black and pink eyeshadow look, which I think came out super cute still. And as always, like all my other repaints, most of the like detail work did get cut out of this video because my head was covering the entire frame and you couldn't see anything at all besides my scalp. So I really need to figure out like a second angle to get these detail shots for you guys. I just like, my face is like 1 inch away from her face when I'm doing all these detail work because I need to get super close. So anyway, that is my long-winded apology. I'm sorry you can't see me do all of her eyeliner and everything. It's just a lot of going over the sketch though. So with that being said, this is her face almost done. I'm just gonna do all of the eye details now. So this is me just cleaning up the pupils that I had packed in with some eyeshadow. And now I'm just adding in the actual shadows in her eyes. So with that, her face up is complete, and I am so obsessed with how her face up turned out. I think she's so adorable. I really love how the pink complements her eyes, and I'm just obsessed with her. I think she's so cute. This is a little sneak peek of her outfit, don't look at that. So with her face up done, let's get into her arm details. So if you've seen G1 Cupid, you would know that she has black ombre arms and legs. And I was honestly pretty disappointed to see that her G3 release didn't include her arms. I am happy we got her legs because G3 is known to cut some corners sometimes, but luckily her arms are something that's pretty simple to do on your own doll, so of course I had to add that to mine. And to do so, I just primed her hands and arms with some Mr. Super Clear outside, and now I'm just painting them black with some watered down matte paint. To achieve the ombre effect on her arms, I did decide to paint them only halfway up so I could blend it out with some pastels later, but for her hands I just painted the whole thing. After I was happy with the coverage of the black paint, I just went in with this tiny packer brush and my black eyeshadow and just went in and just blended it out. I find that to get the best blends, it's easier for me to just start at the base and just get the darkest shade first, like kind of blended out, and then I work my way up to the most blended out parts, if that makes sense. It's really hard to explain. I kind of just visualize it like eyeshadow, like on my actual eye, like if I were to blend out like a smoky eye or something. This is what her arm was looking like after one round of that. I did go in for a second round after I sealed it off camera just because you can still see the line there. And I also did the design off camera apparently because it was a lot of detail work that you could not see. So I apologize about that. I kind of just combined her G1 design with her G3 design, but also kind of morphed it with my own, if that makes sense. And for these, I was definitely inspired by my girl Dolls of Amber, so please go and check her out if you haven't yet. But with that done, let's get into her hairstyling. So like I said earlier, this was my first time kind of working with curly hair, so I kind of didn't know what beast I was working with, especially when it came to her bangs. If I were to do this again, I definitely would have done her bangs differently. And by that I mean I would have re-rooted her with the same colors just in straight hair, because trying to straighten this curly hair was really difficult, but that's what I ended up with after messing with it for so long. I wanted them to look more like her normal G3 bangs, but it's okay. I still like how these came out. I think they're cute. A little side swept bang moment. And now you're just watching me trim at her hair just to kind of shape it up a little bit. I was kind of going for a heart shape, but I think they kind of just turned out like big blobs, but that's fine. Once I was happy with the shape of her hair, I put her to the side and started working on her outfit pieces. So for her outfit, I knew I still wanted to include her original cage skirt and her little like heart harness thing, so I of course painted them black. And for her actual clothing pieces, I decided to not make anything for her, but to rather go down the restyling route, because I honestly felt that like with the vibe that I was going for, that Scary Sweet Birthday Draculaura's dress was going to be perfect with this cage skirt. And let me tell you, I think that I was correct. I love how it looks underneath this cage skirt. And then I also decided to layer this little shirt that's also an extra Draculaura piece. I believe it's from one of her original budget dolls. And this layered on top of the dress is just like the perfect shades of pink. I love how they look together. And then the silhouette with this cage skirt I think is just absolutely adorable. But I'm going to make you guys wait till the end to see that, unless you saw the sneak peeks earlier in the video. If you did, good job, good eye. But now after I painted her other accessories, now I'm just going in and painting her shoes. For these, I also didn't really have a plan. I was just like, okay, I want these to be black and pink to go with her design, and I was like, what would be the best places for pink accents? So I decided to go with the little bows on her shoes here, and then the hearts on the tops, which I cover those with gems later, but they of course still need to match the rest of the shoe. And now I'm just painting everything else black to match. After the paint on her shoes dried, I painted them with some watered down matte Mod Podge, and now it's time to get into the finishing touches and accessories. So to go along with her design, I absolutely knew I needed to use some ribbons and bows. So I gave her a little ribbon choker and then a little like ribbon garter belt as well on one of her thighs. And I think that they came out so cute. I think they really complement her design. And of course she needed some sparkle, so I went in with these tiny little pink gems on pretty much everything and just added them. For her earrings, I originally was going to use these 3D printed like copies of her G1 earrings, but I just wasn't feeling them, to be honest. So I decided to make her these little dangling earrings that match the pink gemstones. And of course she can't have all these other accessories without some rings, so I added these tiny little jump rings to act as rings on her fingers. And I of course had to add the same tiny little pink gems to them for added detail. Oh, I also forgot to mention that I 3D printed her these little nail extensions, and they are so perfect. Look at them, they're adorable. I gave her a white and pink ombre set, which I think came out so cute. And now for the final finishing touch, I'm just adding these tiny little black bows to her hair. If you had seen previously, I had tied them with some ribbons, but I wasn't feeling the floppy bows, so I bought these cuter ones, and that was definitely the move. So with those final touches added, she is all complete, so let's get her ready for her reveal. As always, thank you guys so much for watching this week's YouTube video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed, because I had such a fun time working on this doll and I love how she turned out so much. I am planning on keeping her for my collection, but if any of you guys are interested in purchasing her, let me know. Maybe I'll put her up for sale, we'll see. But for now, she'll be joining my army of all of my old restyles that I need to get around to fixing. But we'll get there eventually, and who knows, maybe I'll make YouTube videos on those too. But anyway, one little quick announcement type thing before I get into my outro spiel. So for the next like 4 to 6 weeks, I will be working on my next commission batch, and I am taking 5 whole dolls this time, so I got a big workload ahead of me. So I'm sorry if full customs are few and far in between for the next couple of weeks. I am just working my hardest on these new dolls. So with that being said, if you'd like to check out some of my future projects and some other benefits, I highly recommend you check me out on my Patreon. I do offer a free tier alongside my paid one, so if you're interested, go check it out. So as always, a huge thank you over to my patrons over there. Pumpkin Tushy, Morgan, Samuel, Daisy, and Lisa, thank you so much for all of the support. And an extra special thank you to Lisa for joining my Patreon. Lisa, thank you so much. I love you guys. Thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I hope you all are having a good morning, night, evening, or whatever it is wherever you are. And I'll see you guys in next week's video.